My girlfriend told me I was a temporary phase until her career took off, so I left quietly. Now she's watching me from the crowd she'll never join. I'm a 28-year-old guy, and for the longest time, I truly believed I was building a life with someone who loved me back just as fiercely. Her name's Jenna, and if you'd met her, you'd understand how easy it was to fall for her. She had that kind of presence that made rooms tilt toward her. Wild curls, raspy voice, eyes like they carried 100 secrets, but when she looked at me, I felt like I was the only thing she saw clearly. She used to call me her anchor, her safe place. She'd whisper it into my chest when she had a bad day or came home crying after another failed audition. "You make the world feel quiet," she'd say, clinging to me like I was the only solid thing in a storm. And I held her like I meant it, because I did. We shared a shoebox apartment above a noisy noodle bar that made the whole place smell like garlic, but I didn't care. It was ours. I worked nights at a dive bar 3 blocks away, wiping up spills and listening to drunk guys pretend they knew pain. During the day, I'd design logos for small clients on Fiverr. Nothing glamorous, but it paid the bills. Everything extra went to Jenna. Headshots, workshops, new heels for her callbacks. I told myself it was temporary. That one day she'd land a role big enough to carry us both, and we'd laugh about the ramen dinners and the busted heater that only worked if you kicked it just right. But lately, the way she looked at me had changed. It wasn't warmth anymore. It was something cooler, sharper, like I was part of the background, not the center. I just didn't realize that being her safe place didn't mean I was meant to stay. Jenna has always been a force, gorgeous in that effortless way that made people stop mid-sentence, and driven like her life depended on it. She talked about fame the way most people talk about oxygen. Needed it, breathed it, and I admired that fire in her. At first, every early morning self-tape, I held the camera. Every 3 a.m. breakdown after a rejection email, I rubbed her back and whispered that her time would come. I knew every one of her monologues by heart. But to the outside world, I didn't exist. I remember this one industry mixer she begged me to come to, some rooftop party full of small-time producers and people who carried business cards like gold coins. As soon as we stepped out of the elevator, her hand slipped from mine. When someone asked who I was, she smiled and said, "Oh, just a friend. He helps with my scripts." I felt my stomach drop, but I played along, smiled, nodded, pretended it didn't sting. Later that night, I asked her why she said that. She didn't even hesitate. "Babe, it's just how it works. They want to see me as available. It's about image. You know that." And yeah, I did know that. I'd seen it in the industry. I understood the game. But understanding it didn't make it hurt less. I kept telling myself this was temporary. That once she made it, once the cameras stopped being theoretical, she'd finally be able to acknowledge me, love me in the open, stand beside me instead of slightly in front. But every time she stepped into the spotlight, I faded just a little more. And eventually, I started to wonder if she ever intended to let me be seen at all. I'd always supported Jenna like her dreams were my own, and for a while that was enough. But eventually a quiet hunger started growing inside me, something that belonged to me, not just her. For months, I'd been sketching ideas in secret, designing mock-ups between shifts, building the bones of a creative studio I wanted to launch. Nothing flashy, just a brand built on clean design. Meaningful storytelling, and good, honest visuals. I even had a name picked out. I was proud of it. So one night, while she was scrolling through her phone, I worked up the nerve to tell her. "I've been thinking," I started, heart thudding, "about starting my own thing. A design brand. Freelance, but bigger. I've got ideas, and I've already started saving." She didn't even look up. Just smirked. "Babe, that's cute. But you're not exactly Steve Jobs." Then she went right back to texting. Like my dream was an amusing footnote in her day, I laughed it off in the moment. Said something dumb like, "Yeah, of course not." But inside, it was like someone had taken a pin to my chest. Not enough to bleed out, but enough to deflate something. It wasn't the joke itself. It was the tone. That casual condescension. Like ambition was a currency only she had the right to spend. Later that night, while she rehearsed lines in front of the mirror, I sat on the couch pretending to work. Staring at my open laptop screen, cursor blinking over a half-finished logo I suddenly couldn't look at anymore. It was the first time I wondered, if she couldn't take me seriously, why was I still bending my whole life around her dream? When Jenna told me she landed a manager, she was electric with excitement. "His name's Mason," she said, eyes shining. "He's connected, like really connected. This could be it." I wanted to be happy for her. Really, I did. But something in her tone, it was different. Sharper. Less about we and more about me. I met him a week later at some trendy cafe in West Hollywood. The kind where coffee costs more than groceries and everyone pretends they're not watching each other. Mason walked in like he owned the place. Tailored blazer, perfect stubble, teeth so white they felt aggressive. He shook my hand like it was an obligation. "Strong grip, no warmth." "So," he said, giving me a quick once-over, "you're the guy keeping her fed while she builds an empire?" He smirked. Jenna laughed. Loud. Too loud. I didn't. From that moment, something cracked. She started changing, subtly at first. Her wardrobe shifted from thrift store boho to sleek black-on-black outfits I'd never seen before. She started using phrases like branding alignment and network leverage, like she was rehearsing for a role I hadn't auditioned for. She was gone more often. Always at events, always networking. I'd wait up for her some nights, scrolling my phone just to keep my eyes open. Midnight turned to 1 a.m., then 2, then silence. I asked once gently, "You good?" She kissed my cheek and said, "This is just how it is now, babe. You want me to succeed, right?" Of course I did. That was never the question. But somewhere along the way, the girl who once curled up in my hoodie after auditions now came home smelling like cigars and rooftop bars I'd never stepped foot in, and for the first time, she didn't feel like mine anymore. When Jenna got the email, she screamed so loud I thought something was wrong. Then she turned the screen toward me, lead role in a major streaming show. I stood up and hugged her, spinning her in the air like we used to when things felt simple. For a moment, it was like the old us was back, but it didn't last. That week, our apartment transformed into a different kind of space. Not ours, hers. Printed scripts scattered across the coffee table. Voice notes playing at all hours. Wardrobe pieces hanging on every chair. She was in full character mode. And I wasn't part of the scene. She didn't ask me to run lines, not once. Mason was over almost every day, sitting on our couch like he'd paid rent. His voice echoed through the walls, feeding her cues while I worked silently at my desk, pretending not to hear them laugh. I offered to help. She waved me off. Mason's already got it handled. He knows the vibe. The night before the audition, I made her tea, set her favorite Lucky Charm on the dresser, and gently said, "I'm proud of you." No matter what happens tomorrow, I leaned in for a hug. She stiffened. "Don't jinx it," she said, pulling away like my touch carried bad luck. Something in my chest twisted. I didn't say anything. Just walked to the couch and laid down, fully clothed, staring at the ceiling fan spin in slow, lazy circles. She never came to check on me. Never called me back to bed, and as I lay there in the dim flicker of the kitchen light, I realized I was no longer part of the dream. I was just another quiet fixture in the background, waiting for the credits to roll. The night of the audition, I waited up like I always did, phone in hand, lights low, stomach in knots. She hadn't texted. Not a single update. Around midnight, I heard her key in the door. She walked in laughing, half drunk on champagne and adrenaline. Her eyes were glassy, cheeks flushed, voice louder than usual. She dropped her purse on the floor, kicked off her heels like she didn't care where they landed. I stood in the hallway watching her. There was a deep red lipstick smudged on her cheek, not her usual shade. And her perfume was heavier than normal, but underneath it, I caught something else, musk, expensive cologne. Not mine. She looked at me like she forgot I lived there. Then blinked and smiled, the kind of smile people give when they're about to say something that's going to hurt. "Hey, can we talk?" My chest tightened. I didn't say anything, just nodded. She sat me down on the edge of the bed and knelt in front of me, hands on my knees like she was about to deliver a eulogy. "You've always been my comfort zone," she began, her voice soft like it was supposed to make this easier. "You kept me sane, kept me grounded, and I'll always love you for that." I waited, but I think we've reached the end of our chapter. You were a phase I needed while I figured myself out, and now I need to elevate my circle. I blinked. The words didn't register at first. "A phase?" She leaned in and kissed my forehead. "You'll always be special to me." I didn't argue. Didn't cry. I just got up. While she passed out on the bed in her dress and champagne haze, I quietly packed a duffel bag. Only what I needed. No dramatics, and before the sun rose, I walked out of the apartment we built together, like I'd never belonged there at all. I didn't make a scene. Didn't raise my voice. There were no slammed doors, no desperate pleas, no dramatic monologues. Just silence. While Jenna slept off her celebration, I stood in our living room, barefoot on the cold tile floor, watching the faint city light creep through the blinds. It was surreal how quiet endings can be. I moved like a ghost, logged out of all the streaming accounts I'd set up and paid for, cleared my bookmarks, deleted saved passwords. I copied every single headshot I'd taken of her, every graphic I'd designed, every deck I built for her brand onto a single USB. Then I wrote one word on the label in clean block letters: phase completed. I tucked it into a plain white envelope. Along with the apartment key she used to call our lucky charm, I placed it gently on the kitchen counter where she'd find it after her morning coffee and took one last look around the framed photo of us at Venice Beach, the calendar marked with her auditions, the mug I always used for my late-night design sprints. I left it all. I called my friend Theo around 4 a.m. No questions, just a tired, "Yeah, man, come crash." That's where I landed, on a lumpy couch in a spare room that smelled like old laundry and microwave meals. And it was the most peace I'd felt in years. No more late-night waiting. No more shrinking in someone else's shadow. She had made it clear that I was just a phase in her story. But now I was starting my own story, without her in the credits. The first few weeks after leaving felt like walking through a fog with no map. I was exhausted, raw, and wired at the same time. But something inside me, something I hadn't felt in years, started to wake up. For the first time in forever, I wasn't pouring my energy into someone else's dream. I took all that pain, all that rejection, all the bitterness, and turned it into fuel. I started building my studio, brick by digital brick. I named it quietly, without ceremony, something sleek, bold, clean. A reflection of what I wanted my work to be. I stayed up till 3 a.m. designing brand kits, reaching out to strangers online, offering logos for dirt cheap just to build a portfolio. I got rejected. A lot. Left on red, ghosted, ignored. But I kept going. Then, one night, I posted a carousel of concept mock-ups, just personal passion pieces, nothing attached to a client. I almost didn't hit publish, but I did. 12 hours later, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. A mid-tier influencer shared it with the caption, "Why doesn't my brand look like this?" Within days, I had DMs from fitness brands, indie authors, lifestyle bloggers, even a small music label asking for a full rebrand. For the first time, people weren't asking who I was with. They were asking what I could do. The demand grew faster than I expected. I hired a virtual assistant, then a freelance copywriter, then a part-time illustrator. It wasn't just a side hustle anymore. It was mine. And this time, no one laughed at my dream. No one told me I wasn't Steve Jobs because I didn't need to be. I was becoming myself. It had been a few months since I'd left. My days were full now, client calls, back-to-back design briefs, and a calendar I finally controlled. Life was busy, focused, mine. Then, one morning, while going through inquiries over coffee, I saw it. An email from a new production company, asking for full branding, logo, social graphics, poster design. The project? An indie streaming drama. I skimmed the brief, half distracted, until I hit the cast list. Lead actress Jenna Monroe. I froze. For a long time, I just stared at her name. It looked strange now, like a version of someone I'd once known but couldn't quite place. I didn't rage. Didn't curse. I just sat there still, I replied professionally. Thanks for reaching out. At this time, I'm not available for this project. Wishing you all the best. Short, polite, closed. But that night, when the quiet crept in, I opened my laptop and searched her name. The show had some buzz, early trailer, a few entertainment blogs covering it. But the spotlight wasn't on Jenna, not really. Her co-star, a young breakout actor, had gone viral for an emotional monologue. The comments were all about him. Jenna was barely mentioned. No front-page interviews. No gifs circulating. Just another face in a crowded cast photo. And you know what hit me the hardest? Not sadness. Not anger, just nothing, no ache in my chest. No jealousy, no pull. Just this calm, distant neutrality. She used to be my whole world. Now she was just a familiar name in a subject line I didn't want to open. And for the first time, I realized I wasn't haunted by her anymore. A full year had passed since I left Jenna behind. 12 months of quiet rebuilding. Of designing, hustling, learning how to stand in my own name without shrinking under someone else's shadow. So when I got the email invite to speak at a creative summit in LA, a panel titled Next Gen Digital Visionaries, I almost deleted it. Imposter syndrome crept in fast. Who was I to sit on a stage next to people I used to follow on Twitter, screen capture their work for inspiration? But something in me, something stubborn and quiet, told me to go. The event was held at a massive hotel ballroom near downtown. Think velvet ropes, digital displays, open bars pouring overpriced cocktails. As I stepped inside, I was hit by the surreal sight of my work, projected on banners that spanned the entire back wall. Logos I'd made from my couch. Brand identities I once doubted anyone would pay for. Then I saw the speaker lineup. My name printed clean, bold, sitting right beside creatives I used to idolize. No qualifiers. No +1, they handed me a badge. I clipped it on, walked toward the stage, and that's when I saw her. Jenna, sitting alone, tucked near the back. Wearing all black, her signature curls pulled into a low bun, face expressionless, except for her eyes. Her eyes were locked on mine like she hadn't blinked in a full minute. She didn't smile, didn't wave, just stared, and I stood there watching her from the stage I never needed her to reach. In that moment, I knew this wasn't revenge. It was a reckoning. Quiet, powerful, undeniable. She had front row seats to the life she said I'd never build. That night, after the summit, I couldn't sleep. Not from nerves, those were gone, but from clarity. I lay in my hotel room, suit jacket still slung over the chair, badge on the nightstand, city lights flickering through the curtains. I was scrolling aimlessly through emails when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. You were never the phase. You were the foundation. I was the fool. I stared at the screen. My stomach tightened, not from pain this time, but from memory. I knew immediately who it was. I didn't respond. A few minutes later, another text came through. A photo this time. It was the old apartment, the one above the noodle bar. Empty. The light over the stove still burned out. The walls bare. That familiar crooked towel rack still clinging to the wall like a scar. The caption read, "It's not home without you." I sat there for a long time, holding the phone, letting the silence in the room press against my ribs. There was a time, not too long ago, when a message like that would have shattered me. When I would have rushed over, heart pounding, telling myself this was the moment she realized what we had, but that version of me was gone. I'd already buried those hopes, grieved the loss, healed the wounds. I thought of everything I'd built, my studio, my team, the clients who respected me, the peace I fought to protect, and I realized something that surprised me. I didn't feel vindicated. Or angry, just done. She had finally said the words I once begged to hear, but now they didn't belong to me anymore. I locked my phone, turned it face down, and fell asleep without needing to answer. News travels fast in small circles, especially when it's about someone you used to orbit like the sun. A few weeks after the summit, I grabbed coffee with an old mutual friend, someone Jenna and I used to bump into at events, always half smiling, always listening. We hadn't spoken since the breakup, but somewhere between casual catch-up and uncomfortable silence, her name slipped out. Her show got canned, he said, stirring his drink. Network dropped it after 3 episodes. Low numbers. Bad reviews. It didn't stick, I nodded. Didn't ask for more, but he kept talking. Said Mason had moved on to some younger actress, TikTok famous, fresh out of NYU. Jenna was back to auditions. Hustling again. Working nights at some overpriced sushi place in Silver Lake, I didn't feel satisfaction. Not exactly, just distance. Meanwhile, my life was moving, fast. The studio I'd built from that tiny guest room now had a name people recognized. I had a real office now. Exposed brick, high ceilings, walls lined with prints of the work I used to doubt anyone would care about. I had a team of 3, hungry, talented, good people who believed in what we were doing. Clients came in through referrals now. No more begging. No more discounted rates. Just solid projects and mutual respect. But beyond the growth, the real win was something quieter. Peace, the kind that hums beneath your ribs when you wake up without anxiety. When your worth isn't questioned. When your ideas aren't laughed at. I'd spent years loving someone who saw me as a placeholder, a pit stop. But now I was exactly where I was supposed to be, and she was still waiting for the life she thought would come without me. It started with a simple email. "We'd love to have you on the show." A mid-sized podcast focused on creative entrepreneurs, nothing massive, but with a loyal following. I said yes without thinking too much of it. Just another chance to talk about branding, building from scratch, lessons learned. The host was kind, thoughtful, sharp. For the first 20 minutes, we talked design, hustle, workflows, client horror stories. Then came the shift. "So," she said gently, "your story, it sounds like it came from something personal. Can I ask about that?" I hesitated, then nodded, and for the first time publicly, I spoke from the part of my chest that still carried smoke. I didn't name names. Didn't throw shade. But I talked about what it felt like to be someone's emotional scaffolding, there to hold them up, but never meant to stay. I talked about being called a phase. About the moment I realized I'd become invisible in my own life. I said, sometimes it takes betrayal to introduce you to the version of yourself you were always meant to become. The host sat in stunned silence for a moment, then just whispered, "Damn." We finished the episode. I didn't think twice. But 2 days later, the clip went viral. Twitter, Instagram Reels, TikTok, everywhere. The comments flooded in. "Bro, I felt that in my soul." This is exactly what I needed to hear today. I'm not a placeholder. Never again. DMs from strangers, other creatives, even a few celebrities. People who felt seen, heard, understood. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just about heartbreak anymore, it was about becoming. And maybe this story wasn't just mine to carry, it was ours. Months after the podcast went viral, I started working on something quieter, something for me. I wanted to create a space where my story could exist without needing to be explained. No captions, no interviews, just color, texture, silence, and truth. So I curated an exhibit, a blend of graphic design, visual storytelling, installation pieces. I called it Phase Completed. It was raw, honest, personal in ways I hadn't dared to be before. Each piece was a snapshot of the life I lived in the shadows. The first room was called Muted Edges, soft colors, blurred forms, everything slightly off-center. It represented the years I spent shrinking myself. Another room, Echoes, was filled with looping audio bites, muffled praise, whispered apologies, and laughter that didn't reach the eyes. The centerpiece was a digital collage titled Safe Place, a torn apartment floor plan layered with old receipts, key tags, and a tiny photograph of a couple laughing. With only one face visible, the exhibit ran for 6 nights. By the end of day 2, it was sold out. On the final night, I was standing near the back, hood up, quiet, watching people walk through and absorb what used to be my pain. And then, I saw her, Jenna. She walked in slowly. No entourage, no performance, just her. She moved through each room like she was holding her breath. When she reached Safe Place, she stopped, stared, didn't move for what felt like forever. Her hand went to her mouth. Her shoulders trembled. I didn't approach, didn't speak. She turned, walked out and never looked back, but her eyes had said, everything, regret, realization, maybe even love, but it was too late. The exhibit wasn't for her, it was for the version of me that finally made it out. It's strange how silence can still feel loud every now and then. I'll notice it, her name or some variation of it, showing up in my notifications, like on an old post, a story view from a burner account that uses no profile pic but follows all the same people. She never messages, never comments, just watches, quietly, consistently, and I'd be lying if I said I didn't notice. Because I do. There's a pattern to it. Whenever something big happens, a client launch, an interview, a new exhibit, she's there, lurking at the edge of it. Watching the life I built out of the wreckage she left me in. It's not about revenge. I don't post for her. But sometimes, late at night, when I see that little gray eye icon under a story, I think, This is the closest she'll ever get to what we could have had. She used to dream of the stage, of cameras and spotlights, and now the spotlight she thought I couldn't survive without her is mine, one I built from scratch. No shortcuts, no handouts, just grit, late nights, and the decision to bet on myself. She made a choice, gambled everything on a future she thought she deserved more than me. And now, she's in the audience, watching a show she'll never be part of again, not because I shut her out, but because I finally saw what she never could. My worth didn't need her spotlight to shine. It was always there, waiting for me to stop dimming it. I'm not angry anymore, not even hurt, really. The ache faded a while ago, quietly like a storm that doesn't announce when it's over. What's left now is stillness. Gratitude even, because she didn't just leave me, she pushed me out of the waiting room of my own life. Out of a story where I was cast as a placeholder waiting to be seen, and that push, it hurt like hell. But it forced me to move. To write my own lines, build my own stage. I've learned that real love doesn't shrink you. It doesn't laugh at your dreams or keep you in the shadows. It builds not just careers or houses or futures, but people. It lifts. It expands. Jenna saw me as a phase, something temporary. A safe, soft place to rest until her next big role arrived. But in the process of being discarded, I found something permanent. Myself. And funny enough, she was still the spark, the fire that lit the fuse, the rejection that made room for something real. Now, when I walk into rooms, I do so fully present, fully seen, not as someone's plus one, not as a name left out of the credits. I've built something I can be proud of. A life that's not just functional, but alive. And in the story of me, she'll always have a chapter. A loud one, but it ends here. The page has turned. The story continues, and for the first time in a long time, I'm not just surviving it, I'm writing it.